Carter Malkasian, The American War in Afghanistan, A History. Embark on a journey through the tumultuous history of the American War in Afghanistan, spanning from 2001 to 2021. This book summary delves into the complexities of the conflict, exploring the reshaping of global politics, American military strategy, and Afghan society. Discover the intricate geopolitical landscape of Afghanistan, its ethnic diversity, and how its history of foreign invasions and internal strife paved the way for the rise of the Taliban and, ultimately, the U.S. invasion. Through engaging and clear language, the summary offers an insightful analysis of the military, political, and social developments that took place during this turbulent period.
Afghanistan's Dark Legacy. The United States military occupied Afghanistan for 2 decades, leaving a footprint that reshaped global politics, American military strategy, and Afghan society. The conflict extended Afghanistan's already drawn-out civil war and disrupted millions of Afghan lives with violence and destruction. Looking back, the true legacy of the conflict remains complex, muddled, and marred by failure and disappointment. Afghanistan, a country with a rich history, has constantly fended off foreign invasions. Its people are ethnically and culturally diverse with a population of about 33 million. Despite creating a unified Afghan polity, the Taliban, a militant group of Islamic fundamentalists, instituted strict social and economic reforms, severely curtailed women's rights, and fueled religious extremism. Afghanistan's dark legacy continues to unfold. The U.S. invasion of Afghanistan, a quick success, slow failure. On September 11, 2001, terrorists attacked the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. The U.S. identified al-Qaeda as the culprit, and demanded that the Taliban turn over its leader, Osama bin Laden. When negotiations broke down, the U.S. launched Operation Enduring Freedom to unseat the Taliban and disrupt al-Qaeda. The Northern Alliance, together with the U.S. military, quickly overpowered the Taliban, and installed Hamid Karzai as the interim president of Afghanistan. However, when the U.S. attempted to reconstruct Afghan society, it faced difficulties, despite President Bush's optimism that a small U.S. military presence could stabilize the country. The invasion became a quick success, but a slow failure, due to various challenges. Taliban's counteroffensive. This book summary describes the years 2002 to 2005 when the Taliban, backed by Pakistan, prepared for a counteroffensive that was launched in 2006 when Mullah Dadullah commanded about 7,000 soldiers. The campaign was a success for the Taliban due to the Afghan government's poor planning and the U.S. military's redirection of resources to Iraq. The Taliban's victory allowed the party to control large portions of Kandahar and Helmand, which gave the party control over the region's illegal poppy trade, a major economic engine in the Afghan economy, and maintained relative political stability. Turmoil in the Eastern Front. The Eastern Front of the Afghan War was plagued with rugged landscapes, complex social dynamics, and diverse enemy forces. U.S. forces under Operation Mountain Lion battled Taliban soldiers and other militant groups but suffered setbacks, including the emblematic Wanat battle. The Eastern Front further hampered U.S. forces, who committed more troops but still struggled to win, leading to a wake-up call for coalition forces. Barack Obama's Afghan War Strategy. Inheriting the Afghan War, President Obama approved the surge, deployed additional troops, and used counterinsurgency tactics to stabilize the country. While the strategy halted the Taliban's advance, its impact was temporary, and it came at a high cost. In 2009, Barack Obama inherited the Afghan War and faced a critical decision as the newly elected president. The surge, a strategy proposed by military top brass, recommended deploying an additional 20,000 troops to Afghanistan. The goal was to use new counterinsurgency techniques developed in Iraq to change the tide of the war. Obama considered his options and finally approved an additional deployment of 17,000 troops on February 16. The surge temporarily changed the course of the war and was overseen by General Stanley McChrystal. In the southern province of Helmand, 12,000 Marines were embedded with local military and police to support counterinsurgency operations. The surge also implemented Operation Hamkari in Kandahar to gradually secure territory around the region's major population center, Kandahar city. By 2012, the Taliban were losing control of the region, and the province was more secure than it had been in years. However, the surge came at a high cost. Thousands of American and Afghan soldiers were killed or wounded, and the Treasury spent nearly $110 billion per year for temporary stability. By the end of 2012, the U.S. was ready to enter peace talks with the Taliban, as the Taliban were determined to wait it out. Overall, the surge was a temporary reprieve that halted the Taliban's advance, but its impact was only short-term, prompting the administration to change the overall strategy. Instead of seeking complete defeat of the Taliban, the U.S. military used a focused surge of troops to disrupt and slow down their advance. The goal was to stabilize the country long enough to turn complete control over to the Afghan government within 2 years. Afghan Resistance against Taliban. In 2012, the Taliban faced an armed resistance from the Andar people of Ghazni, who practiced Sufism. This local uprising highlighted widespread resentment towards the Taliban's heavy-handed approach to governing. Though coalition assistance nurtured the movement, internal problems remained for the government in Kabul, which struggled to coordinate basic services and logistics. The 2014 elections' sullied results led to a power-sharing agreement between two rivals, Abdullah Abdullah and Ashraf Ghani, culminating in a government with less legitimacy than its predecessor. Afghanistan's fragile state. In 2014, Afghanistan faced political instability, a weakening economy, and continuing attacks by the Taliban. The U.S. gradually reduced its military presence, but still had 10,000 troops to maintain the fragile unity government. The Afghan military's ability to fight back was seriously undermined by this milquetoast support, and ongoing morale issues led to many soldiers deserting their posts. As a result, the Taliban launched a massive offensive in 2015, resulting in the capture of Kunduz city and a number of other strategic locations. This book's summary highlights how wavering support doomed Afghanistan's already weak state. The chaotic U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan under Trump. Donald Trump's unsteady leadership contributed to the U.S. agreement to end its presence in Afghanistan. Despite his interest in crushing the Taliban and Islamic State, Trump offered no concrete plan, leaving the generals to sort out the details. Under his watch, the military committed an additional 4,000 American troops and put pressure on Pakistan, but the escalated violence had little effect. In fall 2018, the White House sent Ambassador Zalmay Khalilzad to negotiate with the Taliban, who refused to work with the Afghan government or renounce al-Qaeda until America left. The U.S. signed a peace deal in February 2020, but the Trump administration failed to meet the deadline, leading to President Biden overseeing the final U.S. retreat in August 2021.
The American war in Afghanistan leaves behind a complicated legacy. Despite the surge of U.S. troops, local uprisings, and various strategies employed during the conflict, the Afghan government remained weak and the Taliban resilient. Throughout the U.S. occupation and subsequent withdrawal, internal divisions and dwindling support plagued the Afghan state. President Trump's tenure saw negotiations that led to the Doha Agreement, but it was President Biden who managed the final withdrawal. Understanding the complex history and consequences of the American war in Afghanistan is essential to evaluate its impact on global politics and Afghan society, as well as to heed the lessons that may guide future engagements.